Welcome to the Anglo-Italian pod, and this time today in our Euro 2024 previews, we are joined by Andrew Todos to talk all things Ukraine. How are we doing, man?
I'm good, thanks. Thanks for having me on. Looking forward to chatting a bit ahead of the tournament. Hopefully, a big one this summer.
Yeah, well, it's kind of mad that it's come around already. I feel like the Premier League and Serie A has literally only just finished, and we've already got a whole new thing to look forward to. But exciting times, I think. So let's just get started, I suppose, with Ukraine. Obviously qualified through a tough group, but obviously with help of the Nations League as well. But let's talk about the man in charge, Sergei Rebrov. How is he doing so far? Obviously, we all remember him as a player, but how is he going as a manager?
So he came in the second match day of qualifying last year. So he missed losing to England 2-0. There was a caretaker in charge. He came in straight away, and he's been heavily tipped to take over as Ukraine manager for a number of years because basically after Euro 2021, Andrew Shevchenko left sort of abruptly. He was meant to apparently get a contract extension after leading Ukraine to the quarterfinals, but he didn't get that, left. And then there was sort of this limbo where they gave it to a caretaker manager. We ended up not qualifying for the World Cup in Qatar after losing to Wales in the playoffs. And then finally, Serhii Rebrov, his contract with Al-Ain in the United Arab Emirates came to an end and he was available. And so he's been in charge since that second match day, 10 games in charge so far over the past year. And he's only lost one of those games. And that was against Italy. It was a tough group, as you mentioned. Italy and England in that same group, in a group of 5 as well. So Ukraine finished third, losing that first game against England at Wembley, where Rebrov wasn't in charge. Lost narrowly at the San Siro 2-1 under Rebrov. And then the other games, 2 draws against England and Italy in the home games, because obviously Ukraine have been playing away for the past 2.5 years due to the war. So that's been tough in itself, but still Ukraine can get results. And under Rebrov, he's got a predominantly Spanish backroom team. He's got a number of assistants there that he's been working with for the best part of a decade, really, at various clubs, Dynamo Kiev, Ferencvaros, Al-Ain, and now here with Ukraine. And as well as that, he's got a number of quite highly reputable Ukrainian experts, quite a highly ranked analyst who's in his team called Khlib Platov, who started off his own sort of scouting and coaching university here in Ukraine. And he's got this sort of network of scouts across the world. And he's also the sporting director of DAC in Slovakia.
He's a busy man. He's a busy
so he's got quite a lot on his plate, but he's also been highly sort of looked at over the past number of years because he was at Dnipro 1, a sporting director there, oversaw a number of sort of the big players that they've had over the past number of seasons. So in general, the team that Rebrov's got is very good. Lots of experience as a coach, and it's expected that hopefully, even after obviously they finished third in the group, made it through the playoffs, beating both Bosnia and then Iceland 2-1 respectively in both of those games, coming from behind in both of them. There's an expectation that Ukraine should be able to put in a show this summer under his sort of oversight. We'll see. It's going to be interesting.
So I think when people think of Ukraine and the Ukrainian national team in previous tournaments, I think it's been quite kind of pragmatic football. It's been quite safe, a bit kind of like, stay steady and catch teams on the break. Is Rebrov of this school of thought as well, or is he trying to bring a new philosophy in with the team? Because there's a lot of talent in that squad.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Rebrov has been known over the past, for his football in terms of being quite progressive. He wants to play, build up from the back. He wants to control possession. He likes a lot of passing in his build-up play. However, obviously, international football is a bit different because it's so results based. especially when you're under pressure. And it's not as easy as when you're not one of the bigger sides that can relatively comfortably win every game in qualifying, for example. And as a result of that, there are occasions where, when things hit the fan, where I think Ukraine start playing a bit more pragmatically, per se, where it is a bit more down the counter, out to the wings, cross into either Dovbyk or Yaremchuk or whoever is in the box to try and score. However, there is this sense that this Ukrainian team has got the quality to play the style of football that Rebrov wants. However, I think there still is a bit of a weak spot in terms of dealing with a high press. So when they come against that, that's where it sort of seems to be quite tough to counteract, because there are a number of players that play in the Ukrainian Premier League still, albeit a lot now play abroad. So that's a new thing for this Ukrainian side, where so many are playing in top 5 leagues as well. However, the fact that there is still, I don't know, about 40% of the squad still playing in the Ukrainian Premier League, because a lot of them play for Shakhtar or Dynamo Kiev or even Deep Pro 1, they don't really face high press too regularly, maybe in Europe, for example. Other than that, they're just playing against the low block every week. So it's pretty difficult for them to adapt to that, or at least quickly, when they come to that national team setup. So we'll see. I mean, the group doesn't look overly tough on paper, per se. Ukraine, I would say, after Belgium, probably have the best squad on paper, just in terms of quality and even, you could say, form this season for their clubs, where, Artem Dovbyk, the Pichichi Trophy winner, the first non-Barca or Real Madrid striker or player to win that award in, I don't know, over a decade. And Victor Tankov has been playing really well there in Girona with him, so they've got that chemistry, you could say. Mihailo Mudryk, not the best of seasons, of course, and yet to hit the heights that anyone expected of him at Chelsea, but there have been glimpses of what he can show. And I feel that from a Mudryk perspective, maybe there might be shades of Andriy Yarmolenko, who, when he was playing for West Ham, he wasn't the most consistent either. However, there were moments. But then when he came to the national team, it seemed like he scored every time he was away. And West Ham fans were like, why can't he replicate that? So, I mean, I'll be happy if Madrid can do that this summer, just on the basis that it would obviously boost Ukraine's chances massively. But yeah, I think that there is this. I think there's a hope that potentially that Rebrov's style can be seen through, and hopefully it might be a bit more of a interesting more of a captivating performance this time round, despite Ukraine making the quarters last time round under Shevchenko, who also wanted to play a similar style, build up from the back, slightly more attractive. At the end of the day, they ended up losing to Netherlands last time out after sort of pegging them back twice in the group stages. They just about beat North Macedonia, and then the third one, I think they lost to Austria 1-0. And it was all like, oh, Ukraine made it through as one of the best third-place teams, beat Sweden in the final seconds of added time, and then ended up getting battered by England. So, despite the fact that it was a historic achievement of reaching the quarterfinals for the very first time in the Euros, the actual route of getting there wasn't that convincing. It was kind of a bit of mix of luck and some individual moments. Whereas this time round, hopefully, do a lot more talking on the pitch, I think.
Nice. Well, let's talk about the people who will be on the pitch, and let's talk about the ones to look out for. So you've mentioned him. Obviously, Girona having an incredible season in La Liga. Dovbyk is going to be the guy who's getting all the headlines, right? Everyone's going to be excited to see him.
Absolutely. I think that he will probably be one of the standout players that everyone's going to be talking about pre-tournament. He's not been too bad for Ukraine, but I don't think he's ever been at the heights that we've seen him for his club side, because over the past 2 seasons before he joined Girona, he was top scorer in the Ukrainian Premier League for Deep Pro 1 as well. Would I say he's prolific for the national team? No. And there are occasions where even in the playoffs in March, he started against Bosnia, scored the winner, But then Roman Yaremchuk, who came on for the final 10 minutes and sort of changed the game in that semi-final, ended up starting in the final against Iceland. So Rebrov isn't afraid to sort of switch things up and try and maybe have a different profile of striker, because Roman Yaremchuk's a lot more of a runner, sort of running beyond that last man, whereas Dovbyk is very much, I think, most effective in the box. And then I think someone that we can also mention going into this is probably more of an unknown quantity to most people, Vladislav Vanat, who's the Dynamo Kiev striker, centre forward, top scorer in the Ukrainian Premier League this season. Only 14 goals, which is far from wow, but I think he got 8 assists as well. So he is able to get involved in play, and he's been picked over Danilo Sakan, who's also been relatively good in goal scoring for Shakhtar Donetsk. He had quite a good Champions League group stage campaign. However, I think that the reason he's left on the reserves and will probably play at the under 23 Olympics instead is because he's closer to a Dovbyk, where he's very much in the box, like scoring headers, more of a poacher, that kind of thing. Whereas those three that we've just spoken about are a bit more dynamic. Yes, Dovbyk is more of a poacher in the box, but he has got those qualities of strength. He can hold up play very well. He can bring in other players. He's got that connection with Viktor Tsahankov on the right, who will be connecting with him a lot. And Viktor Tsahankov probably in this Ukraine team, the best player of the past year and a half, in my opinion, and probably one of the most influential stars in this Ukraine team. It used to be Andrew Yarmolenko on the right wing. However, due to his age, 34 now, he will be on the bench. But Viktor Tsahankov is very much that talismanic player who can just out of nothing score from 25 yards out on his left foot, or somehow just take a game by the scruff of its neck and end up sort of assisting someone to tap in the 90th minute or something like that. And that combined with, I don't know if Rebrov's brought this in himself, but very much this tenacity of never die in the Ukraine side. So out of, I think Rebrov's won 6 games of his competitive matches so far, and they've out of 4 of those have been from behind. Ukraine, in the past, if they went a goal behind, it's probably over-ish. Nowadays, it seems like that's a lot more consistent, and his in-game management as well to bring on subs and things like that is very good. So I'm looking forward to seeing if that does come into play in this tournament, because it might possibly very well do.
Very nice. And there's also a bit of a headache for him with the goalkeeper position, right? Between Trubin and Lunin, like Lunin, obviously due to Courtois' injury, having an outstanding season for Real Madrid, huge in their Champions League run. Do you have any inkling as to where he's going to go? Obviously, I think Trubin has a bit more experience in the Ukraine shirt. Do you think he'll go with that, or where do you see this one going?
So realistically, if we were talking about this pre-March playoffs, I would have said Trubin is the sort of shoo-in starter number 1 for Ukraine, because he played throughout all of qualification, and usually that just means that there's a bit of consistency there and all that kind of stuff. However, in the playoffs, Rebrov went for Lunin in both the games, because he's obviously playing for one of, if not the best team in the world right now. However, yes, since Courtois' return from injury, he's been sort of returned to the bench per se, being a bit more bit part over the past month or so. I still think Rebrov will probably opt for Lunin, just on the basis of this season, how everything's gone. He'll probably just end up nipping him, and will be interesting to see how that ends up being a decision, because Trubin has been consistent, but I still think that probably based solely on club form this campaign, Lunin's probably had the better one.
Nice. And before we move on to your predictions for the tournament, are there any other players in the squad that people might not be aware of that you're like, just keep an eye out for this guy?
Yeah, so the number 1, I think, that will have this breakthrough tournament is Georgi Sudakov. And he's Shakhtar's best player at the moment. He's their next person they want to sell for big bucks, a la Mudryk.
Yeah.
He's a central attacking midfielder / centre mid, can play box to box, but his main assets are in the attack. He likes starting off transitions. He's very good dribbler, can carry the ball very well, beat players. You could say he's I don't know, Phil Foden-y type before, not as a wide man, but in the way that he conducts himself. Sudakov himself said that that's someone he aspires to.
Oh, wow.
And then on top of that, similar style in terms of like Iniesta per se. I'm not saying he's anywhere near that level.
Wow.
I'm just saying
I like
that's
it.
sort of the kind of player, lots of passes. He's got very good chemistry of Mihajlo Mudryk, who they've been together in Shakhtar Academy and at Shakhtar for almost all their lives, and then before that they were in Metalist Academy too. So he's one of those players that can unlock Mudryk very well. He's one of those players that plays in those balls in behind the defender that Mudryk loves to run onto, that maybe players at Chelsea haven't really worked out how to do that yet. So I think that will be a tandem, as opposed to, obviously, we've got Artem Dovbyk and Sahankov on the other side that will be very interesting to look out for. So that's certainly someone to keep an eye on.
Very nice. I am excited about seeing that. And obviously, I'm an Arsenal fan. I really wanted Mudryk to go to Arsenal. I really want to see him fully unlocked, because when he was at Shakhtar, he was an absolute joy to watch. And I just don't think it's really clicking at Chelsea at the minute. So I really hope we get to see him unleashed for Ukraine. But before I let you go, how far do you think Ukraine will go in the tournament, and what counts as a successful tournament for Ukraine?
So I think the new president of the Ukrainian Association of Football, Andrew Shevchenko, he has recently, in an interview or with meeting with the press, mentioned that getting out of the group is the goal. That's the bare minimum. And then I think anything after that will be a bonus. Obviously, trying to emulate the quarterfinals of the last Euros would be brilliant. However, it's just the routes that you possibly might have to get there, which will be a bit tricky. So I think round of 16 and a good performance in that round of 16, going down with a fight would be a success. I would personally want to make the quarterfinals, but I think realistically, the knockout rounds is something that Ukraine can aspire to. And then, because this team is the youngest on average that qualified for the Euros in terms of squad that was used in the qualifiers.
Wow.
So there's still a lot of experience to be gathered and all that kind of stuff, but I think they can certainly there should be no doubt of them getting out of the group, and then whoever they get after that, possibly France or Netherlands and all that kind of stuff, will be just interesting to see how they cope against that.
Very nice. Well, I think it falls well that your last game is against Belgium, like Romania and Slovakia coming first.
Possibly.
I think is like a very nice way for the fixtures to fall, I think. But thank you for coming on. That was fantastic, Andrew. When our viewers and listeners want to find you, where can they follow you online? Where can they find your stuff?
Yeah, so Zorya Londonsk on Twitter, Instagram. I've also got a podcast, Ukraine Plus Football. We'll be doing probably a super in-depth and analysis of multiple games and stuff post-match during the tournament. So do chime in if you want to hear more about this Ukraine squad.
Beautiful. Well, thank you very much, Andrew. We'll be in touch, maybe to have you back on during the tournament, depending on how Ukraine do. But thanks very much. We'll see you again.
Cheers.